Hello everyone, and welcome back to Wolfer Programming. Today I want to talk to you guys about the different Foss social media networks that you can use today, in particular Noster, Mastodon, and Bluesky. Lately I've heard a lot of talk about a lot of people moving over to Bluesky. Recently, Reddit started blocking all links to Twitter and to Threads over some sort of political reason. They don't like the decisions that those platforms are making. And so there's been a lot of interest in people moving to open source protocols. And right now, Bluesky seems to be the most popular one that's being suggested on the internet. Everyone's sharing their Bluesky profile. Look me up on Bluesky. I don't use Twitter anymore, or X, whatever they call it. Go find me on Bluesky. And a lot of people don't really know what Bluesky is, where it comes from, and what it means in the ecosystem of open source social media protocols. So there was a man named Jack Dorsey who helped start a popular social media network that you might know of as Twitter. And the management of Twitter, Twitter was meant to be sort of like text messaging, but on the internet. So that you could, send messages, post messages for anyone to read. You couldn't change it because, like a text message, it's already been sent. It's been delivered, right? You can't hand somebody a letter and then take it back and say, no, I need to change it, right? So that was kind of the idea behind Twitter. Well, as censorship choices were made on Twitter and on Facebook and on Meta, people started to want something different. They wanted to kind of control their own data. They wanted to control what they see. And different social media protocols have come out as a result of that. The most popular one is the Fediverse, I think, one of the most popular ones. And Mastodon was kind of the first one to really make that popular. And it's basically mostly done by, I think, one guy with a lot of donations. The donations kind of fund the servers. And Mastodon was very successful, but it wasn't perfect because, as it turns out, that it's mostly run by volunteers. So, and if you didn't know, the way Mastodon works is you host a server, and this is really the way the Fediverse protocol works. You host a server, and that server is your website. It's basically connected to a domain name, and that's important to the protocol. And that server can then talk to any number of different ActivityPub, which is kind of part of the Fediverse protocol, ActivityPub servers. So your Mastodon server can communicate with another Mastodon server. So each Mastodon server can hold thousands of users. And when they post on one server, those posts can then be requested by another server. So if one server goes down, you can still see the content from another server. It makes an exact copy. And this is sort of a decentralized design. However, it's not perfect, but it works. And a lot of people don't like it though, because, well, for one, the person who owns the server, they can delete any post that they want. They own all the user profiles. So if they don't like a user, the user's gone. That user can never access their account again, because ultimately it's the server tied to the domain name that really controls the account. Well, after Elon Musk bought Twitter, there was a lot of interest in other social media protocols. And Jack Dorsey, who had controlled Twitter, had funded something called Bluesky. And Bluesky had these big plans to be this decentralized protocol. And like the Fediverse, it wanted to have different Bluesky servers to be able to interact with each other. And Jack Dorsey was really big on wanting a new protocol, a protocol behind Twitter, that it could work alongside of Twitter, because I think he even still owns some stake in Twitter today, even though we know that Elon Musk controls it. But so a board was set up. A board was set up to control Bluesky, and some code is written. But while that was going on, there was another project called Noster slowly growing on the internet by a man, well, he goes by on the Nostr network like fiat something, right? And so if you didn't know what fiat means, it's kind of a monetary term, right? So basically the Nostr network was being built by Bitcoin people for the most part. In fact, if you actually look into the protocol, the Nostr protocol, it's got actual Bitcoin code in it, like Bitcoin libraries and stuff. And it took a different approach than the Fediverse and Bluesky. Bluesky ultimately decided to go into a Fediverse approach. So it's basically just the Fediverse rewritten, which is actually one of the problems I have with Bluesky is it doesn't offer anything that the Fediverse doesn't offer. I think both of them have some profile exports. They've got some future plans, but ultimately Bluesky is just a less decentralized, fewer client version of the Fediverse. Right, but Noster was kind of growing in that it was the idea behind Noster was it is a protocol first, and you exist as a private key. So similar to SSHing, you have to create a public and private key. You share your public key, and you can use some mathematics and the public key to verify that all messages are sent with signed by the private key. So you keep your private key secret. You no longer have a username or a password or even a URL that defines your account. You exist just as a private key. Keep your private key secret forever, and nobody can ever log in as you. Nobody can ever sign messages as you. And so basically the idea behind Noster was you have a private key, you will sign a message, and then you will post it. Post it where? Well, that's where the Noster relays come in. Noster relays are really interesting. They're kind of like servers. You can tie them to domain names or just IP addresses, but they're relays. So in other words, you can post your messages to them and they're saved, and then other users can pull those messages from the relay freely. Usually you can charge a fee. You can have signups anyway, just like in the Fediverse, you can sign up with the email address, but basically you sign your message cryptographically, mathematically with your private key that you keep secret, and then you publish it to any number of relays. So this is where the decentralized part of Noster comes in. You can post your message to Jeff's relay, to Zach's relay, and any user who subscribes to your public key can then request from any number of relays for all the messages signed by your private key. So they say, here's his public key, give me all the messages that he's posted recently on all these different relays. So if one relay is down, as long as he posted his message to another relay, you're still going to get the new messages. And so it's truly decentralized. And Jack Dorsey decided that he also kind of wanted to fund this project too because he likes Bitcoin and it was basically being written by Bitcoin people, and because it was a truly decentralized protocol. So one of the benefits of the Nostr network is nobody can tell you who you want to read the messages from, right? So as long as you have access to a relay that has messages signed by somebody's private key that you're following, let's say Bob. So you're following Bob and you want to get all the messages from Bob. Well, maybe one relay doesn't like Bob. Maybe they say, I don't want to spread his misinformation or whatever. So I'm not going to publish Bob's messages. And as the relay owner and operator, you have that right. However, but let's say Sally, she kind of has a disagreement with the relay owner and she still wants to read Bob's messages, and she doesn't really care about the relay owner's opinion because she's Sally and she is not the relay owner. In fact, she is a unique observer of the universe. So she thinks that she should be able to read those messages. She can just go pick another relay. And so now we've suddenly introduced the idea of choice that people didn't have in the Fediverse. So if you go to the Fediverse, or even Bluesky, it is possible to host multiple Bluesky networks, although I think there's only really one that matters now, so it's really the least decentralized of the new networks. But if she makes an account on the Fediverse, that Fediverse server owns her, right? And that Fediverse server can decide what servers that she reads from and what servers, and even if she can continue to exist on that server. However, on the Nostr network, she's just a private key, and only she has the private key. And she can pull messages signed by Bob from any relay. In fact, Bob can even write his message on a piece of paper and throw it at her, and then she can, cryptographically verify that it was done by him. So nobody has the control over the network before. And so what relays, if you've ever learned about BitTorrents, back in the day when you wanted to download a file, you would have to go to a tracker. I think they're still used today. So Nostr relays are really analogous, and they're really similar to Bitcoin trackers. So it's basically a website that tracks all these different torrents. So, and that's really how the relay works. It's a server, a location that tracks all these different messages. So that is to say, this is a protocol that Jack Dorsey, alongside of Bluesky, started to fund and started to give money to help it grow, and it is growing. And at the same time, Bluesky was growing. And if you look up Bluesky now, it'll say that Jack Dorsey is endorsing it, but actually, Jack Dorsey left the Bluesky board. He completely abandoned the project. He abandoned any further funding, as far as I can tell. Maybe he still has some stake in the project because he already invested like $5 million into it. But he has nothing to do with Bluesky. In fact, I don't even think he posts there. If you go to Jack Dorsey's Twitter profile, it has a public key at the top of it. And that is basically his Noster account. And if you go to Noster right now, you can download Amethyst, which is my favorite Noster client. I think there's a Primo app most people use. A lot of famous people are starting to use Nostr now, by the way. But anyway, if you go to his Twitter account, there's a big public key, and that's a link to his Nostr account. So if you care about what Jack Dorsey approves of, it's clearly Nostr, and Nostr is really growing very organically. So all this to say is, a lot of people these days are going over to Bluesky because they like its censorship approach. But in my opinion, you should be in charge of what is censored. And the interesting thing about Nostr is you can build the Fediverse with the Nostr protocol. You can make a Fediverse server. Like, you can control other people's private keys if that's what they want. And you can do everything with the Nostr protocol. And you could practically build Bluesky with the Nostr protocol. It would just behave different. And there is bridges that bridges the Nostr network with the Fediverse, with Bluesky, just like there's bridges of Bluesky in the Fediverse. Those are kind of single points of failure at that point. Whole Fediverse servers can block those things. So they're not great, but they do allow some communication between the different services. So I'm really recommending that most people should use Nostr because you should be in charge of what you see. If you like the censorship approach of any given Nostr relay, then use that relay. If you don't like another relay is allowing messages from some user that you don't like or you don't think they should be promoted, don't use that relay. Don't donate money to that relay. You can host your own relay on a Raspberry Pi. Let me know down in the comments if you want to know how to host your own relay. We can go through that on another separate video if you want. But yeah, that's kind of an overview of these different social media decentralized networks. We have the Fediverse, which has various different apps. There's Facebook alternatives, there's Twitter alternatives. It's a great ecosystem. In my opinion, it's the best ecosystem at the moment, way better than Bluesky. Bluesky, to be honest, solves zero problems that the Fediverse hasn't already solved. The Fediverse is doing it better. It's got more clients. It does nothing except, I don't know, something that websites can just sort of virtue signal and say they're good people because they're using Bluesky instead of Twitter. I don't know. But it really solves zero problems. You can do that in the Fediverse. And if you really want freedom, then you should use Nostr. Nostr gives you the most amount of freedom to read what you want, to post what you want, however you want. So yeah, are you guys interested in open source social networks? Let me know down in the comments below, and have a great day.